Hey guys, let's talk about nouns in Ạnglic. I'm going to go over a few things. I'm going to go over cases. I'm going to go over how to pronounce them. Then we're going to try some. This is going to be a short lesson. I mostly want to set things up for the pronoun lesson, which is next. And I'm going to apologize in advance for all the charts that are going to be going up on screen the next few lessons. They're mostly visual reference, and I'll try to talk around them. So nouns have a case system that's not too much more complex than ours. Before actually plugging words into this, let's actually go over what these mean. I'll do that using this example sentence up here, Ik foxefeed hundesfod, which means I feed a fox dog's food. So let's start off with nominative. Nominative is your subject of a sentence. It is the thing doing the action. It's the word ik up here in this example sentence. Accusative is our direct object. It is the thing that an action is being done to. So it is fod in this example sentence here. It's at the end here. Genitive. Descending lets a noun modify another noun. And it does it with the sense of relation or possession. Put an S there. And it is the word hundis in our example sentence. And then finally, we have dative, which is something that we don't really have much of in modern English, but it is the recipient of an action. And it is the word foxa in our example sentence. Let's also go over how to pronounce these, because pretty much like any grammatical element in any language, these aren't really pronounced exactly. So to pluralize nouns, we add this ending, which looks like as, but is actually pronounced more like us. Let's make this bigger. It's pronounced more like us, and if there is a vowel before it, it's just z. Same thing with accusative. You may notice that through this whole thing, nominative and accusative are pretty much, well, they're identical. It may seem like I could have rounded these up into like an absolutive case, but these are differentiated in the pronoun lesson and with syntax later. So I want to keep the distinction clear, even though it's not so apparent in basic nouns. But moving on to genitive, we have this ending here, this S. This actually isn't is, as it looks. It's pronounced a bit more like is. Is. So I'll get to the vowel ending version of that in a bit. This is pretty standard. It's ah. It's a long ah sound, no matter what the ending is. The dative ending for singular is just which is a sound that you hear a lot at the end of words in Ạnglic. And again, I'll get to the vowel version of that later. And and are pretty stock. They don't change much. So let's move on to actually plug in some words into here. The first one I'm going to start with is Ston, which means stone and ends in a consonant. Since these two are just the root, let's start with the plural form. How do you think this is pronounced? Stonas. Right? I hope you said Stonas. If you didn't, if you went back and then listened, and then came back and said Stonas, that's also fine, as long as you understand. How do you think this is pronounced? The genitive with the es. How's that pronounced? Stonas. Stonas. That's like the hardest part. That's like, you know, the two incongruencies here. Because this is, well, how do you think this is pronounced? If you said stana, you'd be right. Stana. And dative, as for dative, has this sound. Stana. How about this one? Stanum. Cool. Let's move on to another that ends in a vowel. This one ends in A. It's mona. It means moon. Again, these are the same. But how do you think you pronounce this? monas. Cool, right? And this is also monas. So let's move on to genitive. And this is where things get a bit interesting. If there is a vowel and you have to give it a singular genitive ending, this is becomes part of a diphthong on the end of the vowel. So this is not like monais or monas. This is monais. Monais. This, as you would expect, is just mona. Mona. And pretty much whatever vowel this ends with, you add an ah, you lengthen it. This here could behave as... That's my alarm. This here, even though this is usually a schwa, actually takes the phonetic component of the singular genitive. And so this is not mona or monae. It's monai. Monai. Just like this is monais. And then this plural dative here is pretty easy. Monam. Let's move to another example. This one ends in an E. These are A's, as you'd expect. But when we get down to genitive, this can be pronounced one of two ways. It can be pronounced ayes, as you would expect following the conventions of the last one. Or it could just lengthen the E, as someone else would also expect. Ayes. Ayes. Both of those are valid. The same thing can happen here. This can be a yay or a yay. With these two plurals here, we have a yeah. That's pretty, I mean, what did you expect? And a yem. Crazy. Let's go to the next one, which is a U ending. This is lagu. It means lake or body of water, I think. And this one is also a bit different because final U's shift the stress of the diphthong to the ending rather than the vowel of the root. So this may look like laguis to some, if you follow the conventions of the others, but it's more appropriately pronounced laguis. Laguis. Same thing here, lagua, lagua, and lagum. An interesting byproduct of this is that lagus can also be pronounced and spelled laguas. If I went too fast, you can go back, you can listen to me pronounce anything over again, but I think we're going to go down to this chart here, which was the chart from the beginning, and we will try out some words. So let's start with bow, a boga. Say you have more than one bow. How would you refer to your more than one bow? You'd say bogas. Say that you like a particular bow's color. How would you refer to the color of that singular bow? If you said bogais, you're right. Say you're shooting your bow at a wagon. Multiple wagons, actually. You see some wagons and you shoot at them. What word for wagon would you use if you're saying you're shooting at the wagons? Wainum. It is the plural dative form, meaning at multiple wagons. Cool, right? And say that instead of hitting the wagons, you miss and you hit a tree. You hit multiple trees, actually. What word for tree would you say if you say you hit some trees? You may have said trēvas, and that's a good guess, but I'm going to teach you something else right at the ending here. To say some, you imply that it is of the verb. So to say some trees, it hit of the trees, you would say trēva. Interesting, right? It implies that it simply hit some trees that were there in a group of more trees. I think it's cool. Let's also say that because your shots went so far into the forest, you don't have any interest in getting those arrows back. So you're fine with letting the trees have the arrows. How would you say that the arrows are in possession of the trees? This is also a trick question, because trėva is also the answer. And we're going to define one more case here at the end, and it is instrumental. Instrumental points out the noun that is being used for the action. This is done in Ạnglic not with a noun ending, but with a particle mid, which is a different spelling of mid, meaning with. Let me make these big. And so to say that you shot at some trees with a bow, you would say midboga. Midboga. So ik trėvam shot midboga. I shot at the trees with my bow. So that's a good little mini lesson that I was gonna put earlier, but forgot. So I hope that still works. There's a few more examples I want to go through. Let's get into the ethereal realm, and let's talk about bedu, which is prayer, like the concept as a whole. Say you've been trying different methods of prayer to your os, your god, your single god. How would you say that you have sent multiple prayers, multiple types of prayers, to a single god? What versions of either of these words would you use? For bedu, it'd be bedus, right? And for os, to say you're praying to a single god, would be os. That's really all I got. I'll have links for Ạnglic resources down below, and I will see you for the pronoun lesson next. Thanks.